everyone, as you can see probably by this apple as well as my glasses, I am Teacher Minion to Michelle, and for this Random Talk Sunday, I am going to be briefly addressing the history of Halloween because I find history to be very interesting, especially when associated with holidays, because a lot of people like to know, well, where does Halloween come from and why do we have all these weird, bizarre traditions? Well, I think I can provide some answers to that. So with my research, I will sort of give you a brief summary as to the history of Halloween and what it has amounted to over the years and basically where it stems from. Now, the interesting thing about Halloween is that, yes, from what research that I could pull up, it was based within pagan tradition. This didn't start off as really a Christian holiday until later on, or Christianity wasn't really even around until we get sort of what the modern Halloween is. But basically, Halloween actually stems back a lot further than some people think. 2,000 years. It was part of a Gaelic festival, and it was called Samhain. And instead of it being considered the sort of traditional Halloween that we think of, it was really a holiday sort of celebrating the transition from summer to fall. It was sort of a celebration of the harvest, so to speak. And that's really where the holiday really initially comes from. And basically, it was technically called Samhain, but then it sort of incorporated itself within Halloween later on when we saw other religions arising and other festivities resulting. So the origin of costumes was actually part of the Samhain tradition because during the time they would wear animal skins and furs, and people often associate with that as being really the first ever costumes really that people wore for Halloween. So it was really a holiday to celebrate sort of nature. It was a nature-oriented holiday. It wasn't a holiday that was centered really around death or evil. It was just really a holiday based within a changing of the seasons. And that's something that's, I think, really at the core of what Samhain was trying to do. But in order to just understand what ends up resulting in the modern version of Halloween, we have to look at the Irish immigrants that were coming to the United States. And they were the ones that really brought Halloween to the forefront for the West, in particular, the North America, United States. And the Irish considered Halloween to be the time when spirits of the dead could return to their old haunting grounds. So that was really the main idea behind what the Irish sort of brought to Halloween, whereas it stemmed from the Gaelic festival as being something of harvest and of changing of season. The Irish put in this concept of the spirits and of the dead being an important aspect of Halloween and what Halloween sort of represents. So you see the representation sort of changing over time, and again, the name. So basically, what ended up resulting once the holiday was brought to the United States is that we saw a lot of vandalism actually happen. The Irish brought it over, and it sort of gave people an excuse to sort of celebrate and put pranks on each other, and this led to a lot of vandalism during the 1920s and 30s. So this is a time when we didn't have trick-or-treating yet. We didn't have the concept of candy. But that's when candy came in to sort of solve this sort of vandalism problem, or at least reduce the vandalism problem, because as a result of this vandalism, people fought back with this by incorporating treats. And so this is where we get trick or treat, that whole thing that you say when you go to the door. It was this idea of mitigating the vandalism, mitigating the tricks by offering the people treats. So if a kid comes to the door and says trick or treat, he's really saying, are you going to give me some candy, or am I going to pull a prank on you? That's really what it originally really stems from. It's this idea of coping with the vandalism, and this is why Halloween is kind of now more of a peaceful holiday and not as rambunctious, although people do teepee on Halloween. But again, the vandalism was, I think, a little bit more severe back in those days. So they really did try to minimize this by bringing in candy for the kids and sort of gave it the holiday sort of a compromise. So now bobbing for apples is another thing, and apples are actually really important to Halloween. Bobbing for apples was sort of like a fortune-telling concept. It was sort of a means to predict marriage. So all the people that were the first person that was able to bob for an apple without like using their hands or anything, that was the first person that was going to get married. That was sort of the fortune-telling aspect. And there's also other concepts that they've used with apples that revolve around sort of the sort of marriage too. So it's bringing in all of these ideas, Halloween, that we don't really usually associate with when we think about where they originally stem from. But that's the interesting thing about holidays is that they kind of have this sort of quasi-compromise at times, with different traditions sort of mingling in together. Now, carved pumpkins. That's another big thing that I wanted to bring up when it comes to the history of Halloween. So this was an Irish tradition, and basically it started off by this one Irishman. I guess he was a farmer and he was a drunk. So once he passed away, he was sort of put into the state of purgatory. And in order to sort of guide his soul, he created basically a lantern out of, I think it was originally turnips and other sorts of vegetables, in order to sort of guide himself through being in purgatory, I guess, or basically roaming the earth, sort of with no purpose. And this tradition is what really comes from the Irish idea of making jack-o'-lanterns, carving out pumpkins. This whole concept really stemmed from this sort of legend about this farmer. I believe his name was actually Jack, so that's why you get jack-o'-lantern as a saying. So in order to sort of keep him and other unwanted spirits away, they made their own jack-o'-lanterns. So that was kind of the idea. In order to combat these evil spirits, we have to create what he created, I guess, to show that we are not afraid of him and we want him to go away. So that's really where these kinds of weird little things stemmed from. Again, the whole idea of dressing up and costumes. It originally was that people would dress up more as what we think of as the traditional kinds of Halloween costumes, like witches and fairies, things like that, things that were kind of really mythical. But now this is expanded across the board because of consumerism. So now you can dress up as pretty much anything for Halloween. Heck, you could be a teacher for Halloween. And that's, I think, really what makes Halloween so unique is really how interesting the history has been in regards to Halloween and the changes that have been made over the years. And it's really interesting to see where these certain things stem from, like where the pumpkins stem from, where the trick-or-treating concept stems from. And it all really basically comes down to these old traditions that were just passed on. And I think it really does come a lot with the Irish culture in particular, since they really were the ones who brought these sorts of concepts to life, and their ancestors sort of brought that concept too because it was considered to be a Gaelic festival. I believe Gaelic is associated with Irish history, but correct me if I'm wrong on this. But ultimately, I think that's really all I can say about this particular topic in general. However, if there's any questions that anybody has, like if there's something that confuses people in regards to this holiday, because again, I'm sure that there are these certain little details that you might have noticed from the holiday that I didn't catch. But if you do have those questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them, because I am a teacher after all. My job is to teach. So yeah, that's, I think, really ultimately all I can say. I hope you all have a great day, week, month, and year. And I hope to be back. I don't know if I will be, but I hope the other minions all do a good job. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.